Welcome back to MSNBC's Trump on Trial. Now we have something of a citizen's pamphlet or viewer guide about this trial. On Tuesday, the Senate will stop functioning as a legislative body. It will become a partial courtroom, at least part of the day for every day until this ends. And that means the majority leader will have less control over what happens. Individual senators can have more options to press their agenda. And the more you know about all of this and the rules, the more you realize this process and the outcome of the trial is not set in stone. If you hear people predicting exact outcomes, it could even be a sign they don't know a ton about these rules. Because what the Senate rules provide is a kind of a roadmap. We can't say what will happen, but we can see how history suggests where the key inflection points are, which could shape this very important trial. So let's get into it. First, after everyone is sworn in, there'll be an opening for some wrangling over these very rules. The Senate can use the standing rules for past impeachments or change them. Or it could hold some potentially contentious votes about changing them. I can tell you right now there are 26 standing rules. So the trial can start with debates over how to use them or maybe tweak them. And just about anything goes that can get 51 votes and doesn't violate a couple of the fundamental ground rules from the Constitution itself. Then I can tell you early on in the trial, any senator can try to end it, demanding a vote to dismiss the articles. Now, running from his judgment day, we know President Trump has started to beg for that during the last impeachment. After every witness had already testified in the earlier process, some senators did push for that kind of vote right after opening arguments, and they lost. And then after that jousting, the trial moves to the opening arguments, a battle between House impeachment managers and the president's lawyers, which now includes more famous names that we've been talking about, Dershowitz and Starr. Well, back in '99, when Starr was a prosecutor, Clinton's lawyers were still, of course, largely unknown to most viewers. Take, for example, Deputy White House Counsel Cheryl Mills.
You can misrepresent the facts. You can hide the facts. But the truthful facts are stubborn. They won't go away. They show that this was not obstruction of justice.
While some of the Republican Party's top leaders at the time made their case, they were the managers presenting their opening arguments.
You are now stewards of the oath. Its significance in public service and our cherished system of justice will never be the same after this.
It is truly sad when the leader of the greatest nation in the world gets caught up in a series of events where one appropriate and criminal act leads to another and another and another.
The wheels of obstruction started rolling, and they did not stop until the president successfully blocked the truth from coming out.
We also know when it comes to these Senate jurors, all 100 are required to be present on the floor for the whole trial. That includes those running for president, but they can only engage in the bulk of the trial by submitting questions in writing to the Chief Justice. We also know that eventually you will get to some of the fiercest arguments because they've already begun. Should there be witnesses? If there are, who should they be? Consider House Republicans fighting for the idea that even witnesses who'd already testified should still be re-interviewed. That's how strongly Republicans were backing witnesses when it came to Clinton's Senate trial.
In every impeachment case, the Senate has heard from live witnesses.
Unless and until the president has the opportunity to confront and cross-examine witnesses like Ms. Lewinsky, there cannot be any doubt of his guilt on the facts.
Give us the opportunity to present this witness so that you, as jurors, could fairly and honestly determine her credibility.
In that case, the Senate did vote to allow more witness testimonies, the so-called re-interviews. The depositions, though, were behind closed doors, and then clips of video were shown to the Senate. Now, while Senator McConnell and President Trump are fighting witnesses, some Republican senators, as I'm sure you've heard if you're watching this special, you've heard about this, they say they may join Democrats at this inflection point. This week, Rachel Maddow had the bombshell interview with Giuliani associate Lev Parnas, and that has underscored why many say you need to have more witnesses to make sense of all that, to even fact-check it. With or without witnesses, eventually, I could tell you about another inflection point. The trial gets to those dramatic scenes that everyone recognizes from Law and Order or any other big case, the closing arguments.
There is only one question before you, albeit a difficult one. Would it put at risk the liberties of the people to retain the president in office? Putting aside partisan animus, if you can honestly say that it would not, that those liberties are safe in his hands, then you must vote to acquit.
For the sake of our country and for future generations, please find the President guilty of perjury and obstruction of justice when you cast your votes.
Now, everyone knows what happens after that, right? A jury goes and deliberates in private after hearing the final arguments. Well, not exactly. This is really interesting and something that hasn't gotten much attention yet. There is another inflection point on that very thing when the Senate jurors will discuss whether or not to remove the president, because the Senate can decide for itself whether to deliberate in private, like a traditional jury, or in public as a legislative body. It is a high-stakes question that's hard to predict. There could be wavering senators that argue, well, maybe they'd be more critical if they could just get real and talk in private. Or, on the other hand, there might be public pressure that could effectively push senators on these weighty questions if they have to deliberate and debate in public. And with this president, who knows? By the end of this thing, he might be pressing for Republican senators to vote to deliberate in public so he can watch every last one of them do what he might want, defend him on live TV in the trial of the decade, right before the re-election kicks back off if he is not removed. Well, all of this can be a vote because it is considered a change to the underlying rules, which requires a supermajority. Now, in the Clinton case, a majority, 59 senators, wanted to go public, but that was not enough for the required supermajority.
Both sides have made their case, and now the Senate takes its debate on the evidence against the president behind closed doors. And as NBC's Gwen Ifill reports, despite today's vote, that's exactly where the deliberations are expected to stay.
And they stayed there for 2 days, going back and forth on an issue that had consumed the nation. And then the United States Senate found President Clinton not guilty on both articles of impeachment against him.
Two-thirds of the senators present not having found him guilty of the charges contained therein. It is therefore ordered and adjudged that the said William Jefferson Clinton be, and he hereby is, acquitted of the charges in the said articles.
Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.